Hey everybody, welcome to episode 24.
This week, our friend Bethany takes us over to London.
This is Railroad Showcase. We're continuing on with a theme of scale trains. Last week we went to the Redwood Valley Railway, and this week we go across the pond. Bethany Camholes moved to the UK when her husband Keith landed an animation job in London. We're pleased to have her as an international correspondent.
Hey, this is Bethany Camholes for Railroad Showcase. We're here at Alexandra Palace for the London Model Engineering Exhibition. Let's go!
This exposition is one of the largest model engineering events in the world.
There were displays by individuals as well as by many clubs, such as this one by the Beechhurst Miniature Railways, displaying the craftsmanship of their 5-inch and 3.5-inch gauge equipment.
There were also some scratch-built electric trains of different scales.
SME, the Society of Model and Experimental Engineers, had a hands-on display with a small lathe. Young visitors, and adults, had a chance to machine a part from stock metal, most for the first time in their lives. Stationary engines could, of course, be found in abundance, and in a wide variety.
It's an old one.
It certainly is.
Yeah. Store it here and you read it off there.
And in a spirit of inclusion, model makers with a more fictional bent were welcomed into the show as well. Some of their work was serious, some of it was whimsical. But we can all agree that one's life isn't complete until you've seen a post-apocalyptic steampunk Darth Vader and Yoda.
This has been Bethany Camholes for Railroad Showcase. Thanks so much for joining us at the London Model Engineering Exhibition.
In 2012, BART, the Bay Area Rapid Transit in California, contracted with Bombardier to construct 775 new cars to slowly replace the current aging fleet. The first 84 have been delivered, arriving from Bombardier's facility in New York. Most of the remaining order will be completed in California, where a new Bombardier assembly plant is being built. Located in Pittsburgh, California, these future rail cars are practically being built next door to BART when compared to the current travel distance, cutting it down from 3,600 miles to just 50. Elliot Sander, president of Bombardier's American division, said, "We are pleased that the new rail cars for Bay Area passengers will now be produced in the Bay Area by Bay Area residents. The Pittsburgh site will also enable Bombardier to pursue additional business opportunities in the growing rail transit equipment market on the West Coast."
The Gateway Project for the Northeast Corridor has been in the works for years, trying to get the funding to move things forward. Wednesday, the Senate passed a bill to create a commission that will oversee the Hudson Tunnels and the new North Portal Bridge, as well as other projects, all of which are expected to take upwards of $30 billion. The commission will consist of 7 members, 3 representatives from New Jersey, 3 representatives from New York, and 1 from Amtrak. Amtrak and the governors from both states will have veto power over the commission, and while the commission will not receive any compensation, they will get reimbursed for expenses incurred during their duties.
The Sierra Railway number 28 has just returned to service at Railtown 1897. The engine was bought by the Sierra Railway in 1922 and has stayed with the railroad ever since. In 2009, it was discovered that the crown sheet and other portions of the firebox were too thin for continued operation, and she was put on static display until her restoration could begin in 2013. After 5 years, her restoration was completed, and on June 1st, a celebration was held in her honor. Thanks to Kevin Hill for sharing this video. The full video can be found on his channel on YouTube.
The Sierra wasn't the only railway to get an engine back on the rails June 1st. The BRECON Mountain Railway in Wales just finished their restoration of the Santa Teresa No. 1. Built in 1897 by Baldwin as a 260 2-foot gauge engine for the Mogiana Railroad Company in Brazil, most of its freight likely was coffee. It was later sold to a sugar mill where it was re-gauged to 30-inch gauge, and most likely ceased being used well before the mill railway system was closed in 1970. Later, in 1990, the locomotive was brought to the UK, and a poor restoration attempt was made before being abandoned. The BRECON Mountain Railway purchased the engine in 2002 and has since had a complete restoration with a new boiler, cab, and tender.
The engineering company HDR earned a national award this year for their patent-pending Infinity Loop track design for loading and unloading at terminals, which will help process a higher volume of trains more efficiently. The design loops the staging yard around a balloon track giving a look similar to an infinity symbol where its name was derived. This layout has the dual effect of eliminating the bottleneck caused by opposing trains using the same track, while also turning the trains around without adding additional moves. The design also minimizes the amount of property needed for these facilities and allows for a more productive use of the space allocated. The first implementation of this loop is currently under construction in North Vancouver, British Columbia, where a Canadian grain company is building a new Pacific Coast terminal. The facility is scheduled for completion in 2020. Though to be honest, I can't help but wonder if I didn't see a similar design in a John Armstrong layout years ago. So for our first favorite find this week, we go to the Illinois Railway Museum. They reenacted what had been a common sight in smaller towns all around America: dropping off and hooking mail on the fly in an RPO car, the Railway Post Office car. Maybe most of us have seen photos or drawings of this happening, but it's pretty rare to see what hooking the mail is like from inside the RPO. Thanks to Matthew Gustafson for sharing these images with us.
Bag out. Good job. There it is. That was good. Good job, man. That was good.
There's an untold number of tools for an untold number of jobs that need to be done, and that's especially true for railroad maintenance. These videos show what's called an undercutter, or as Dymax, the company who makes it, calls it, the Rail Ballast Blaster. It's designed to remove ballast from underneath rails and ties that don't need to be replaced, so fresh ballast can be added over top. It's always interesting to see specialty machines like this at work.
There are a lot of us rail fans who are looking forward to seeing the upcoming movie Train Time in IMAX, especially because the SP4449 is featured in it prominently. In the springtime last year, they took the daylight out on a secret excursion to shoot footage of her in IMAX. Railfan Dan, who has lots of excellent drone footage on his YouTube channel, managed to catch them while they were traveling through the Columbia Gorge in Washington. Just look at some of these shots.
This next video was shot by Peter Hoffman on the Camas Prairie Railroad in the northern half of Idaho. I've always wanted to use a pedal car, or something of the sort, to travel over some mountain railroads, and these guys found the or something. Using folding bikes mounted on special frames, they were able to ride around these abandoned lines just taking in the scenery, though they did note the dangers of doing so, especially when trespassing, and they expressly mentioned that they had permission from the railroad to travel on these tracks.
What incredible views. I mean, a stunning video and a stunning vista. But I'll tell you what, I can't say that I endorse what they did. I mean, they say they have permission. There's levels of permission. Who was it that gave them the permission? Did that person actually have the authority to give the permission? And you know, there's a lot of people who think they have permission. There's a lot of people who say they have permission, but would it stand up in court if someone actually got hurt? Maybe not. Trespassing is bad for everybody. The people who do trespass, if anyone is indeed actually trespassing, is making it harder for other rail fans. And I'll tell you what, that actually looked pretty dangerous to me. If there were any flaws in those rails when they were on that trestle, it could have been bad. That video might have been even more spectacular than it was.
Very true, but at least they noted the dangers, and they did not recommend doing that yourself unless you took the necessary precautions. So at least they were trying.
They sent out a good message, and they did get some beautiful video. So that was fun.
All right, that's it for episode 24. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we are just so excited to be here sharing the greatest hobby in the world with you.
We look forward to seeing you next week, and in the meantime, keep your hand on the throttle and your eye on the rail.